is Dr. Asia Murphy, and I am a wildlife ecologist recently with the University of Arizona. And this is our conservation tech speed dating panel. So the purpose of this panel is to just showcase a whole bunch of different kinds of tech and different organizations that work with tech, and pretty much figure out what we can use their items and their organizations, their algorithms for in our own research and in our science. So this is sponsored by Black Mammologist Week, which is just a week just basically to focus on connecting Black scientists and mammalogy, but also to share our love for mammals and wildlife in general with the public. So let's see, we are at 3:01, and we have, again, a number of different organizations and people today that are going to be talking about their technology, people who work with bioacoustic recorders, people who work with artificial intelligence to identify carnivores in Africa and in North America, people who use remote kits to collect environmental data such as temperature and precipitation, and also just people who are interested in investigating what wildlife does when we're not around. So I think, let's see, I might want to just wait one more minute. But make sure that you listen to the talks. We're going to have a nice Q&A session after or during after each person's talk. So make sure if you have any burning questions to write them down for each person. And there'll be 2 minutes after each person so that you can hopefully ask your questions. And then at the end of this panel, we will wrap it all up and everybody will give a shout out to their companies and their links. So if you have any really burning questions that you weren't able to ask within the allotted time, or you just suddenly thought of it while you were listening to somebody else's talk, you can always reach out to them as well. So let us, I think that's enough time. Let's begin with Freaklabs in Australia. So that's Jacinta and Akiba. You guys are in Australia, right? I think I got you guys down in the time zone, right?
We're actually in Japan, but we are based out of Australia and Japan and the US.
Okay. All right. Okay. So it must be next morning, right? For you guys.
It's early in the morning. So yeah. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever, whatever is the appropriate.
Well, I'll leave it to you guys then.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks, Asia.
So I'm Jacinta.
I'm Akiba.
And we run Freaklabs. So at Freaklabs, we develop field technology for wildlife research and conservation. And today we're going to be talking about Boombox, which is a device that connects to a camera trap to create an automated behavioral response system, or an ABRS. So just to give a really, really brief recap, I'm sure everyone already knows this, but to explain a little bit about what an ABRS is, it's basically a camera trap with playback experiment capability or functionality. So camera traps, as everyone is likely aware, are a very common tool used in ecology and conservation. They're non-invasive, they're automated, and they offer a really valuable insights and observations to be able to monitor different kinds of species in the wild. Playback experiments is an approach that exposes animals to a sensory cue, usually an audio cue, and it's used to monitor species or individuals' responses and better understand the drivers of the wildlife behaviour. However, playback experiments usually are limited by the species that you can observe by people on site, and they can disrupt because you've got a human presence there, you can disrupt the natural behaviours, so that they can be a bit limited in use. So what an ABRS system like Boombox does is combine these two so that you can explore new research, come up with new different kinds of conservation applications as well. So, but as we mentioned, Boombox connects to any commercially available camera trap, and it connects directly to the camera trap's passive red PIR sensor, the passive infrared sensor. So when the camera trap is triggered, Boombox will play a sound, allowing the animals to respond to the audio cue and be recorded by the camera trap. So we'll just, this is where everyone holds their breath to make sure. So that just gives you, let's stop that one. So that gives you an idea of some of the responses that you can capture. Boombox has been around for about 4 or 5 years now, and as we mentioned, it's compatible with any camera trap. The standard speaker cable is around 50 centimeters, but it can be customized. We've had instances where it's been 3 meters up to 10 meters, depending on the experiment design. There's a manual control volume control dial, and detachable MP3 modules so that you can swap sounds out easily in the field. It also comes with a rugged enclosure that's being able to withstand all different kinds of environmental elements, from snow through to flooding through to heat. One thing that we're still trying to protect from, though, is wildlife itself. So we've had a few instances of curious wildlife coming up to investigate and in some cases destroy the device. So some of the programmable features that you can use with Boombox is that you can set a delay before the audio cue is played, and that's quite useful if you want to capture some pre-behavior, so behavior before the cue and then after for comparison. You can also set the idle time between triggers to sync up with the camera trap so that Boombox and the camera trap remain in sync, and you're getting the correct partnering of the visuals with Boombox. There's sequential or random playback, so you could play through a playlist, or you can randomly choose which audio cue you'd like to play. And there's also the ability to have multiple playlists, so you could have that are time-based, so you could have a nighttime playlist or a daytime playlist. And then you can also program the device so that it plays at a certain time on the hour, five minutes after the hour, for example. And we're getting a lot of feedback from people in the field, requests for new features and so on. So this is all an ongoing optimization and development, which is really, really exciting for us, because we get to hear about people's research and also see lots of cool video footage. So Boombox has been deployed globally, as we mentioned, in various terrains for various applications. So you can see a bit of a snapshot of some of the deployments that are currently going. And usually the deployments will last for a couple of years during the field season as people gather data for particular publications and papers. There's various applications. There's a lot of interest coming from the ecologists or behavioural ecologists that are looking at the landscape of fear. So, for example, looking at better understanding responses to introduced predators, present or past, past, present and reintroduced species or predators for predator-prey interactions. Even looking at intra-guild interactions, so competition or coexistence between members of the same group. An area that's getting more and more interesting for people is the impact of human activity. So that's being used to look at the impact of recreational noise on wildlife's habitat range in national parks, for example. Human-wildlife conflict is also another really interesting one, where The device is being used in trials, for example, for a deterrent, but also to keep stray cats away from the burrows or the nesting area of endangered birds, for example. And then also animal intelligence, so testing responses to different kinds of novel cues to better understand the personalities of different individuals in a group or a species, and or problem-solving abilities. One big thing is habituation. So part of the development and part of the research that some of the researchers are doing, looking at habituation and ways to mitigate habituation. So we have a whole suite of development in progress. For example, to add new modalities such as light, smell, and motion. So hopefully that will help to start address some habituation. Some of the device or the methodology has been used for various kinds of research, some of which the publications are starting to come out now. One study from the US Forestry, Rocky Mountain Research Stations and Aldo Leopold Wilderness Research Institute looked at the impact of recreational noise on wildlife in Bridger-Teton National Park. So you can see a bit of the study design there, and then some of the findings that came out. Another application is used by some researchers in Italy that are looking at wolves and humans and how they're co-adapting as both predators. So this research team is looking at the presence of urban wildlife syndrome in free-ranging wolves to help develop, and they're also looking at the attitudes, the community attitudes towards wolves to come up with better human-wildlife conflict strategies and resolutions. So I'll play this one, and this is just some of the video footage that they've got.
Beh, ecco, abbiamo un problema con la merenda. Oh, bene, un secondo.
Another application that is actually done by some researchers from King's University in Canada is using what we're calling boombox disco, which is basically boombox with audio and with light. And this team is looking at the reactions of species to playback of acoustics, so just unimodal or multimodal, so acoustic and visual, as a way to understand if it can be used for crop deterrence and also the rate of habituation. And they've got a paper in prep, so hopefully they're looking to publish that towards the end of the year. Another option is that another way that people are using it at the moment is to, this team is from the Comparative Cognitive Conservation Lab in the Department of Psychology at Hunter College in City of University, New York. And they're looking at elephants and how they respond to predator sounds. But they're also looking at individuals' personalities within the elephant guild so that they can better understand where there might be a particularly bold elephant that might be leading crops, raiding on crops and so on. So they've been using boombox to better understand what kind of stimuli the elephants will move away from. And you can see that they're looking that they tend to have a stronger aversion to when human vocalizations are coming out rather than even the big cats. So that's it. I think we're ahead of time. So we've perhaps we've got a bit more time for questions. But we do have a website that's coming up very soon for launch. It's called boomboxprojects.org. There'll be forums. There's also be information about how to set the devices up, troubleshooting, as well as some of the new features that are up and coming. So if people are interested, feel free to reach out, and feel free to reach out at any of the researchers that have provided their contact details, because they'd be more than happy to talk to people. So thanks, everyone.
That was super cool. I always like I knew a lot about the whole audio recording thing and connecting it with cameras and using it as like playback to look at how prey species like zebras and antelope are influenced by lion calls and stuff, that was an excellent video. I love that. Like they were gone like that. It was amazing. But like I never even thought that this stuff could be used for like human wildlife conflict stuff, like, you know, protecting crops from certain species and protecting herds and stuff like that. So that's really neat.
Yeah, it's definitely continuing to be in development because habituation is a really big issue that a lot of people are facing, and a lot of the applications are facing. But it's also really exciting when you start to combine it with other kinds of strategies. So we sort of see it very much as a tool, and it's also really interesting just to see how animals respond to different kind of stimuli.
Yeah, so right now we have approximately 3 to 4 minutes for people to ask any questions that they might have for Jacinta and Akiba, any questions they might have about the equipment, about any ideas that they might have in regards to how boom boxes can work within their projects or how it might work in their science. So feel free to write down your questions in the chat. I'm not seeing anything right now, so I'll ask myself some questions. So you said that this is open technology, right? And I'm assuming you guys have like a tutorial on how to. Yes, okay, because I'm used to buying things out the box, so. But I'm assuming it should be easy to fix a boombox to a camera trap, right?
It's a new skill. It's a very important new skill you can send to me.
Right now, actually, it does require a bit of soldering, and so we normally walk a lot of the ecologists through soldering, especially if it's their first time doing it. And we give an equipment list, but actually we're also looking for we're developing, or in the process of developing, a way to interface a boombox to a camera trap through just the power port, so you don't actually even have to open up the camera trap. So that's generally one of the things that intimidate people a bit, is like kind of opening it up and seeing all the camera trap guts. So
I would say though that I think opening up a camera trap, having a look and connecting something to add functionality brings a lot of people that we've worked with are actually really happy that they're pulling the guts apart and having a look. So in some ways it's sort of demystifying a little bit of the electronics. I think technology in electronics is another skill set that many ecologists are starting to build.
Indeed, it's good to know how the equipment works, just in case something goes wrong. So it does look like we have a question. Any park services or countries looking to implement this technology as it continues to evolve and improve?
We have a couple projects. One of them is in Alaska with the U.S. Forestry Service, and of course there is the project that Jacinta mentioned at Bridger Teton National Park, which is measuring the impact of humans on wildlife. The one in Alaska, I think, is actually used as a bear deterrent to prevent them from prevent the bears from eating all the hitting the salmon spawning grounds up there. So I think at least specific spawning grounds that are kind of considered sensitive. Yeah, so there are programs in place, and we're also in discussions with other organizations as well, especially say in Australia or New Zealand. So
yeah, there's also a group that's using it through the government research arm to look at using it as a deterrent for wild and stray cats from endangered bird nesting grounds during the breeding season. So there's various kinds of so basically yes.
Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you. We're gonna have you shout out your information again after everybody, but this is again freaklabs.org. Jacinta and Akiba, thank you. Next will be Maureen Reilly with Tech for Conservation. And I'm just looking at trying to refresh my memory about your organization. I'm looking at this North Wild Book and using AI to identify bobcats from their spot patterns, which is a lot of interest to me. So love to hear more.
Cool. Well, we have 3 wild books. I'll get into that in the presentation. Thanks everyone for being here and watching our presentations. I thought that was super cool from Freaklabs. So many interesting applications. I've worked a lot in the last few years with conservationists in Africa, and the human-wildlife conflict issue is omnipresent, and so I can imagine this having lots of applications for various situations like that in Africa. Thanks everyone for having me and giving me the opportunity to speak at this event. As Asia said, I am Maureen Reilly. I run a Canadian nonprofit called Tech for Conservation. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization, and if my slide deck wants to work. So who we are, a little bit about our technology, then I'm going to do a deep dive into our Wildbook platforms, and last talk a little bit about our impact. So very quickly, who are we? Registered Canadian nonprofit founded in 2020, and our mission is to find and deliver technology that helps conservationists on the ground to save time and resources, and leading to better incomes for their projects with measurable outcomes. Our production levels technologies, the 3 wild books, the African Carnivore Wild Book, nicknamed ACW, Whisker Book, and Wild North, which is our most recent one. Yes, Asia, that's the one where we have lynx, bobcat, individual ID capabilities, and we have some other technologies being tested. Here's a snapshot of all of those. Those are the home pages for the 3 wild books. Those are all open source systems and are offered at no cost to the conservation and research community. We also have a pilot project going on with Lion Guardians in Kenya for a mobile LoRaWAN conflict mitigation tool. This is different from the Freaklabs. Yep.
Can we just pause? I'm trying to get your screen to get to full screen, if that's possible.
It's as full screen as I can get it. It's on presentation mode. Is it not working?
Oh. You switch slides now, Maureen. You're just stuck on the first one for a minute. All good. Sorry about that. We'll make it as big as we can. Yeah, it's not full screen. We still have your slide deck to the side, but that's okay. Worst case.
Oh, we must have a really slow connection, and that's weird because I'm in a pretty high connection kind of area. Are you on the Conservation Tech screen?
Yep.
Okay.
Golden.
So down here on the left, this is a little bit about the conflict mitigation toolkit, which is really based on LoRaWAN tags. One of the biggest challenges with tracking animals using collars with tracking technology is the tracking technology is very expensive and can be very unreliable. So we're piloting a lower cost mechanism using LoRaWAN with Lion Guardians. Most recently, we have been involved with a researcher in South Africa, Dr. Dave Gaynor. He is leading a project to test and trial and hopefully launch mass snare detection using a technology called synthetic aperture radar. We're simply mainly trying to help fundraise for the project as well as a delivery advisor on the project. So about Wildbook, let's get a little bit deeper into it. I'm going to use ACW, the African Carnivore Wild Book, as my sort of content where I'm deriving most of my imagery and explanations from. This is the African Carnivore Wild Book homepage. We do also have Whisker Book, and you can see on the right here are the list of species supported in Whisker Book, and we last year launched the Wild North Wild Book for Northern Hemisphere species. So what is Wildbook? Very simply, it is AI software for individual ID. It helps researchers and conservationists understand who was seen where, when, and with whom across time, geography, generations, and species. How does AI help with individual ID? It accelerates the process. It improves the accuracy of the identification kits. It makes bad photos like mine much easier to identify, and it's pretty fun. But most importantly, what's the impact? It is now possible to ID very large image sets much faster than ever before. So if you think of the large volumes of camera trap imagery that come in, and also the opportunity presented by what we refer to as citizen science images.
Hey, Maureen.
Yeah.
First of
Am I
all,
going
yeah,
too
we
fast?
always no, it's just that I think we're trying to get you to switch one slide at a time. It looks like
Yeah, we're still stuck on the fourth one, Maureen, and I'm really sorry it's giving you trouble.
Oh.
You can we can exit screen share, try again. If you want to go full screen share, that might be a little bit better. I just want everyone to see your presentation.
Sure, let me try that. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Apparently, technology doesn't love me today. Share screen, share entire screen. What do you see now?
We have got it pretty much up. It's not full yet, but we've got our hunting dog. There we go. Now it's full. It's perfect.
Yes.
Glorious.
All right.
Go for it.
Apologies, everyone. Well, let me just check where we were. Did you see the Whisker Book list of species and the Wild North list of species, or did I go way too fast?
No, not too fast. We just didn't have them come up as slides. This is perfect to see them. And again, we can get this whole slide deck to anyone who registered for this after the fact as well, for anyone who misses anything. Sorry, we're going a little long, folks.
Sorry, kids. All right. I will talk faster and try to keep the slides going as much as I can. There's the homepage for the African Carnivore Wild Book. We support 10 individual ID of 10 different species there. These are the species that we support on Whisker Book, and these are the species we support on Wild North. So again, it's all about who is seen where, when, and with whom. Are my slides keeping up now?
You are golden.
Excellent. Okay. So how does AI help with individual ID? I've just done this, so I won't reread it, but it accelerates it. It improves the accuracy, makes bad photos easier to identify, and it allows people to process much larger volumes of data now, so large camera trap volumes, but even citizen science imagery. So what does the AI do in the system? It does a bunch of different things. The first most important thing it does is called detection. And that very simply is find the animal in the picture and put a box around every single one you can. So we have lots of hyenas here, a whole pack of, must be mom and babies, cheetahs, lions, wild dogs, leopards, you get the idea. Find the animal in the picture, put a box around them, and that way we can identify each animal in each box. Detection is automated, which is superb, except for when it's not. But the system does give the user the ability to correct this. By that, I mean adding 3 boxes where currently there is only 1. There should be 1 box per wild dog. It is pretty super awesome. Here you can see 2 animals detected, 2 leopards, and in this picture that's enlarged, you can actually now see, with a bit of difficulty if you're older like me, the second leopard up in the top right corner there. The next thing that the system does is automated viewpoint detection. So which angle of the animal are we looking at? So that's the hind or back of the leopard. This animal is a front right. This animal is a back left. This sleepy wild dog, that's a down, which means we're looking at his belly from down below. And I don't know, can anybody guess which one this one? This one is a front right. It's pretty good. Next, the system does background subtraction. So this is really important with camera trap imagery, where at a single camera trap station, the background is always the same no matter which animal is walking past. And so you really need, for the algorithm, when it's looking to identify or help you identify the animal, you want it to look at the animal, not the grass on the road. All right, very simply, how does it work? So you upload a bunch of photos and their metadata of date, time, and location. The photos get run through the AI algorithms. The AI looks for matches from your photo or photos to other photos in the database. The AI presents the best possible match candidates in the database to your animals and presents them to you for your review. And then you, as the expert, are the one who needs to confirm the correct matches and assign IDs. So this is what that looks like. This is a match results page from within the African Carnivore Wild Book. This is the image that the user uploaded and asked the AI, do I already know who this animal is? Do I have a matching image in the database that has an ID? And so if we hover over the match candidate list here, number 1, we will inspect, and the system does allow you to look at these 2 animals a little closer. But you, as the owner of the data, can then say, oh, yeah, that's the same leopard, taken several years, 3 years apart. So I would check the checkbox, and you can see up here on the right, I'm allowed to set to individual BPC LPM32. Easier to say Rolo because that's his nickname. And confirm that ID and assign the ID from the match candidate to my target image. And so you see here up on the left, it shows that I've assigned this previously un-ID'd photograph the ID of Rolo, BPC LPM32. And then the magic is that you can then go into any other correct match candidate in the list and assign the ID to all of them all at once. So this is it takes away all of that manual effort of comparing your leopard to every leopard picture you have. And it does all the comparisons for you. It presents the best possible matches. And then you ID as many of those correct matches as you can find. So here are some correct match examples. Trying to display here some difficult pictures, challenging pictures. It does compare black and white to color. These ones are just cute, so I had to show these ones. Some interesting options. Everybody's seen a bad camera trap photo like that. And obscured in different angles. Still able to find correct matches. These, by the way, are all examples sent to me by the researchers and conservationists who are using our system. And when they get a really cool match and they remember, they send it to me. So additional functionality and benefits, lots of stuff around, obviously, the analysis of photographic imagery. Any sightings with GPS data are automatically get a pin on a map. There are multi-species maps, and you can capture both relationships, social relationships, familiar relationships. So you can associate a number of hyenas, for example, with a clan name, and you can associate a mother with her cubs. There's automated co-occurrence data, so where 2 animals have been seen together or more have been seen together, that is captured automatically for you. High levels of security at both the user level and the organization level. It is securely stored in Microsoft Azure. Your data is exportable. There are data integrity tools to make sure you don't have duplicates and other messy bits. Common platform forces data standardization. There are audit logs to know who in your organization did what, when, to which records. It is fully maintained and supported by Tech for Conservation and our development partners at WildMe. And it's free. So what's the point? It's fairly niche, as you can see, individual ID is a niche problem to solve in the conservation world. But what's important is where it can be extrapolated and start to inform population modeling. And in this case, we have a good example from this first paper ever published using the African Carnivore Wild Book. And it focused on the ability of ACW to assist in reducing identification errors. So what they found is they reviewed a 7-year camera trap data set that had previously been manually or visually ID'd without the help of AI. And they found that they actually had 7% less cheetah individuals in that data set than they had previously counted. And amazingly, 22% less leopard individuals. Here's another reason why. This is Eurasian Lynx, and my friends in Europe who sent this to me, they sent it to me as an example of how many more bad photos they're able to identify than they ever could before. So this match candidate, they tell me they would never have even attempted to try to identify in the past. It was just too blurry, and doing it visually, manually with all of the possible candidates that they have, they just wouldn't have done it. And here they have. They've been able to confirm that these two animals in these two pictures are the same individual. Here are some of the organizations that are using our wild books, large and small, university-based, on the ground, conservationists in the field, all over the world. We are in 36 countries globally, both in terms of study areas and where people are have taken their work home with them back to their home countries and are using the system from there. In total, we support 20 species. 461 is a little low because I've just added a few more new users in the past week or so, but 460 plus individual conservationists and researchers, over 66,000 sightings, batches of photos uploaded, and just over 13,500 individually ID'd carnivores.
This
at no cost.
Looks even free. This looks great. Thank you, Maureen, so much for sharing this with us. We did have a question about any cross-reference with other continental wildlife. They might be interested in the Wild North Wild Book project that you had, but we have to move on to Kyle Sheridan with Wildlife Acoustics. Thank you again, Maureen. Really appreciate it. Really interesting. I'm gonna have to look it up a little bit more after this panel because I can definitely use it. But Kyle Sheridan with Wildlife Acoustics. I know literally nothing about bioacoustics, but I know it's like a big up and coming thing. So
Indeed.
I'm definitely going to be listening really hard to this.
All right.
Taking a lot of notes.
I'll try not to disappoint. Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Sheridan. I work here at Wildlife Acoustics on the business development team. I run trainings for our software. I travel around North America teaching people all about our technology and what we do. Little introduction here into bioacoustics. We'll go on. What is bioacoustics? This, for a lot of people, this is a new term, and it is essentially the science of sound produced by or affecting living organisms. And you can think of this in many different ways, more than just the sound of living organisms, but think of anthropogenic sounds or sounds that occur in the environment, like lightning or waves or wind, firecrackers during the 4th of July, or cars running down the highway. How do all of these sounds that we hear every day, whether you think about them or not, how does that affect what's going on in the environment and how the organisms around you respond to, each of those things? So that's essentially what bioacoustics is in a nutshell. Just sound and how does sound propagate. Our technology for wildlife acoustics has come a really long way. We started, our inception was back in 2003 with something called Song Sleuth, when our CEO was out for a hike in the woods and thought, I hear some birds overhead, and it would be really neat to know what kind of birds those are just by listening to them if I'm not an experienced birder. So our first prototype bird recorder plus the software for it started way back then. Now, of course, we have beautiful things like the Merlin app on our phones. But this was kind of the first appliance, first real piece of hardware that propelled this technology back then. And it's come a really long way, as you can see from the timeline here. A lot of the devices got a little more robust, a little more intuitive. They definitely got heavier, as you can see in 2007 and 2009. They were these big metal boxes with these 2 microphones, and they were a real pain to lug out into the field. But since then, we have made them smaller, more compact, easier to use. But in 2007, we became the first company to produce a commercially available wildlife recorder, especially something that had been weatherproofed and could be used passively. And what we mean by passively is that you can take this recorder, any of our recorders that we sell now, and put them out in the field and essentially forget about them until you're ready to pick them up, which is one of the greatest, advantages to using acoustics, is that it is a very non-invasive type of, survey. If anyone's ever gone through a hike in the woods, you know that the animals in the area, the birds, the frogs, the deer, everything, they know you're there, whether or not you know they're there. And they will modulate their frequencies. They'll call differently. They might even be silent just because they know you're around. So having an acoustic monitor out in the field when humans are not present is crucial to collecting data, because it allows those animals to go about their business freely, do what they would normally do. And that's when you collect the best data. Another great thing that you get from bioacoustics, one of the many applications and benefits, is that there we go. My notes got off my screen. Is that you can do all sorts of studies. You can derive so many conclusions just from listening to acoustic data. You can do a standard soundscape study just to find out what is even happening in your environment. You can monitor social interactions, migratory patterns, breeding behavior, hunting behavior, species inventories, population dynamics, and presence absence. I typically stray away from telling people presence absence necessarily, because if the animal doesn't make a sound, you didn't know it was there. Similarly to if you have a camera trap and your target species is right behind the camera, well, you didn't know he was there or not because he didn't go in front of the sensor. But you can certainly tell presence. And for a lot of people, that's a very big thing. A lot of our customers are doing restoration projects, especially here in the States on the wetlands, monitoring for birds and such things. A lot of people monitor after forest fires to see what sort of animals have moved back into the area or what has survived. And touching on the human-wildlife conflict that we had heard about before, one of the things that we hear is an application where you're not even listening for animals at all. In fact, we do have customers who set these recorders out into the woods so that they can listen for poachers or gunshots in a protected area. And this information tells them that there are people on land that they shouldn't be there, and they are, hunting wildlife that is protected. And there are other such applications, but acoustics goes a long way. Any information that you can derive just from hearing something is crucial to our business. And one of the questions we get asked all the time is, what's the detection distance? Well, how far can it go? And it's really up to the species. We have people that monitor howler monkeys up to 2 miles away, all the way up to using our ultrasonic line of recorders to monitor in the higher frequencies for things like bats or insects or small rodents that vocalize in that higher frequency range. And that's really allowed us to open this technology to so many more people, so many more types of research across the world. While at the same time, as you can see on the bottom of that timeline, developing a software to kind of go hand in hand with that. So not only are you recording something, but we're giving you the extra tools to, be a little more intuitive, dive a little bit deeper into what it is you're trying to derive from that sound. And that's really what bioacoustics is in a nutshell, is how much information can we derive from just sound. So now I guess we'll move into the development a little bit more and how we get to this. We're trying to deliver a practical and reliable, cost-effective method for people to monitor all species. You know, our biggest ones right now are birds, frogs, and bats. That's a huge market here in the state is bat research, especially with so many of the species going up for listing, unfortunately. But anything that makes a sound in nature, these devices can be applied to. Secondly is the ingenuity of our team here. If you find yourself talking to any of us over here at Wildlife Acoustics, you will find very quickly that we are made up of engineers and musicians, people that really understand the property of sound. And all of us, whether we are, trained biologists or not, we all have a great appreciation for nature and the environment and the organisms that live here on this planet. So that really encompasses our whole company. The drive to want to make this technology better. If we can think of a solution, then we will build it. And we hope that it's applicable in the field to the people that are really doing the hard work. And beyond that, we're really trying to push the boundaries. You know, every year we try to come up with something new that is innovative and will push our technology to the next tier, making it something that maybe we didn't have available before. Even if it's something as simple as just how can we double the battery life of our recorders from last year so that our customers get more deployment time and they don't have to cut their project short? Or how can we get microphones further from this big, recorder where it's a little more incognito and animals are less wary of it? How can we do remote data transfer? How can we incorporate some of our auto identification software into the recorder already and not have to do the back end work, which we do have for bat species. I forgot to touch on that once before. One of the biggest draws to our bat research is our software Kaleidoscope actually has a built-in list of classifiers in which we can pretty successfully name the species of bat that you've recorded solely based off of its call signature. And those classifiers are vetted by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as well as other government agencies that do a lot of the heavy lifting for us so that we can give this technology to the public. And then beyond that is our academic partnerships. The people that are the students, the researchers, whether you are an undergrad, you're working on your PhD, or you're in a university lab anywhere around the world. I mean, we work with universities across the globe. It's really about innovation. We come up with a cool solution to something and we put it out in the field. We give you this bioacoustics tool. And the cycle here is that this tool enables the people here to do, the most amount of research possible and as effectively as they can. And they go out in the field and they do what they can with what they've got. And they come to us later on and they say, this was great. It helped my research so much. But if you could just tweak this one little thing, it would have given me an extra week or maybe a little extra noise sensitivity on the microphone. And we listen. And that is how we really develop and innovate our technology. It's not solely by us alone here in the office, but by you, the researchers and the students and the biologists who are out in the field really doing the hard work. How can we develop technology to make your lives easier, better, and give you more, sufficient data to really, push your work to the next level. And we're really passionate about that. Going into 2024, we have brought so many new things to light. Our line of song meters, that's our name for these recorders, is the Song Meter Micro, which is that smallest device on the right side of that picture, along with its larger brothers and sisters, the Song Meter Mini and Mini Bat 2. We categorize our recorders. You might say, well, there's a bat on that one and there's a bird on that one, but I'm researching cheetahs or ungulate species. Not a problem. We've kind of categorized things into birds and bats. It's simply to say that this recorder records in the ultrasonic frequency, hence the bat, and this recorder records in the acoustic frequency or human hearing range, which would be categorized by the bird. But we've done a lot of engineering this year to bring some really cool stuff to light, that being improved weatherproofing for these devices with a hinged latch design, which, believe it or not, is very robust. We've had many customers come to us and say, hey, your Song Meter Mini 2 survived, or your Song Meter Mini rather, survived a hurricane down in Florida, or it survived a prescribed wildfire out west, and we were still able to recover our data. The device is toast, but we still got our data. And we love hearing that because that means that these devices are so much more robust than we thought. And it allows people to really have confidence in where they're deploying them. We've doubled the battery capacity of our Song Meter Mini 2. Those are our two larger devices on the left side of the picture there. And for our Song Meter Micro 2, which is about the size of a cell phone, actually a little smaller, we've increased the battery capacity by 30% and made a flatter frequency response to the microphone, giving you a lot clearer calls, a lot clearer sound work when you're collecting that data. And for all of these devices, any one of them that we produce, they're all configurable on a free Bluetooth app. You can develop your sound settings, your schedules, which can be as in-depth or as simple as you want. We have preset schedules on every device. So if you're new to bioacoustics and you're looking at this device going, what the heck is this thing? How do I use this? No worries. You can use a preset schedule, put it out in the field, see exactly what you're getting from all those presets, and you can adjust from there. And as well as we also have free online trainings via Zoom. We have free tutorial videos all over our website as far as customer stories. And our support team is happy to Zoom with you, phone call with you, email with you any time of day to help you push your deployment that much further. You can put as large an SD card in any of these devices. They all run on SD cards. That's how you take your data off for now until we figure out remote transfer. You can do up to 1 terabyte if you feel like it. These devices run on AA batteries or lithium-ion batteries that we supply. They're a very special size, but that can bring your deployment time from maybe 3-4 weeks to possibly months in the field without even having to go and check on that device, which is so cool because some people have to put their recorders out during the cold time when the ground is frozen because in the spring it's a wet marsh and you can't get somewhere. That really helps people push the boundaries of how long they're able to record for, especially if you have a migratory species that's only there during certain times of year. So every little thing we do to design these devices is really just to help push everyone's research that much further, give you that much more of an edge. And we're all over the world. We get suggestions and comments and from every corner: North America, Asia, South America, Africa, Europe, pretty much everywhere you can think of. I mean, on the business development team, I see them go out the door every day to all different kinds of addresses. So it's really, really exciting. So that's pretty much where we're at now with it. We have a lot of really cool things coming down the pipeline, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on bioacoustics. Thank you.
That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Wow. Oh, we do have a question. Okay. So the question is, what's the next animal group you're targeting? And I mean, personally, I want to say that like the kaleidoscope thing sounds really excellent.
So I would take that I would interpret that as what's the next thing we're going to have auto identification for? And right now we're working on birds and frogs, that being our biggest or our second biggest draw to this technology. The reason we're not quite there yet is because bats have a very specific call signature. And in the ultrasonic range, there's not much else happening as far as outside disturbances or noise. So it's very easy to discern a bat species by that call frequency, whereas birds or even frogs can modulate their frequency so much. I mean, we have bullfrogs that sound like cows and blue jays that sound like red-tailed hawks. And for a software to pick that out, it would kind of be like discerning you or I doing an accent. It's like, well, I know that's Asia, or I know that's Kyle, but they have an accent this time, and it's a lot. So we don't want to introduce that to the public until we're 100% sure that it works, because we know that a lot of people's research depends on it, and we don't want to fault anyone.
Well, you do have another question, but it's time we have to move on to
Sure.
Wild Tracks, Cassondra Stevens. Thank you, Kyle. I learned a lot about bioacoustics, but I'm sure that you'll be able to shout out your information at the end of this, and they'll be able to ask you any questions that they have.
Thank you.
So, again, Wild Tracks with Cassondra Stevenson. So I'm looking at this, and it seems like it's like a data platform, sort of, to upload your data, which is so much more, I guess, technologically savvy than I do. I put all my data in Excel. So I'm really excited to hear about this.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me. Yeah, so I'm Cassie Stevenson, and I'm here to speak on behalf of WildTracks. I'm the Senior Wildlife Camera Coordinator at the ABMI, the Alberta Biodiversity Monitoring Institute. So I primarily, as a sort of preface, deal with the remote camera side of WildTracks, and it'll become apparent shortly that that's not all WildTracks does, but just so you're aware, I'm not super savvy with the air use side, although I can definitely answer questions that you have. So jumping in, for those, oops, there we go. For those who might not have heard of WildTracks before, well, what is WildTracks? It's an online platform for managing, storing, processing, sharing, and discovering environmental sensor data. So what kind of types of sensors and data can WildTracks handle? Well, primarily air using cameras, and on the air use side, of course, is birds. We also have amphibians and bats with a sort of recent ultrasonic component as well. Wildlife cameras, of course, that's pretty apparent. Most, small, medium, large-size mammal, I would say probably most cameras are most relevant to medium and large, but I digress. But then, remote cameras are also used to study recreation, and we're kind of seeing more and more of sort of the human recreation monitoring as well. And then we have a third sort of data type, which is point count projects. And so that's just human observations, sort of going out and point counting the old school way. And that's sort of been used historically more for this boreal avian modeling project, but it can also be used for other species as well. So who uses WildTracks? Well, it's getting pretty big. So we've got over 300 organizations, anywhere from within government, industry, academia, consulting agencies, indigenous communities, NGOs, and over 3,000 users worldwide. So what type of metadata support in WildTracks? Well, thinking about sort of organizations as a separate entity from projects, the organization is a group of users who collect data, and essentially group it into certain projects to answer specific questions or implement a specific study design. So different metadata is also collected as location, and it says sort of some options here about how that's displayed, but I'll actually talk about that in the next slide. But you can also manage your equipment and your visits in WildTracks, as well as obviously your media information, your metadata. But getting to the data privacy component, because this is really key, and I think this is limiting for a lot of folks using remote cameras. And I obviously, I'm not going to go through all of this, but I just want to point out a few things that are different levels of data privacy. So just highlighted here, there's different membership types. And so based on either organization or project, whether you're in the organization or project, how users interact with the data can be sort of specified by these different user types. At the location level, there's different ways that you can display your location information, whether it's hidden or visible, or whether you've also hidden the location underneath that, or the data underneath that location. And then other options for sort of buffering, which is just essentially providing sort of a rough coordinate that folks can get a general idea of where your camera or ARU is located, but not really showing them exactly where it is, so that doesn't occur. And then project status. So taking your project, and once you're done processing your data, there's different options for how your data is visible across the system. And one thing I want to point out, because it's really important, I think it's a bit of a misconception, is just because you're using WildTracks and it's sort of this platform in promotion of collaboration and data sharing, doesn't mean you have to share your data with anyone. So there are different options essentially in how to publish your projects that sort of protect your privacy as well. So I'm here to speak about cameras, so I'll kind of jump into the camera side of things. But when you go to create a camera project, I just want to point out we've got quite a few tagging field options. It's not quite, you can't essentially create your own fields in WildTracks, unfortunately, because one of the sort of goals of WildTracks is to sort of standardize data sets. And so we've come up with a suite of fields that we think are sort of the most primarily used. but you don't necessarily have to see all of those. You can select which ones you'd like to see within your project, or don't. And then I'll kind of show you what those are more in a bit. And then pre-processing settings as well. So different ways that you can apply auto taggers. And I'll just jump to the next slide because it's a little bit more relevant, or showing you the details here. So we currently have Megadetector version 5 implemented. And so this is the benefits of Megadetector. Of course, it's cost effective. Really reduces the amount of time you're going to need to process your data. It's much easier to classify images. So I think this actually might be a bit faster now, but it's roughly 15 images per second. So since we implemented this, I'm finding that any image set could, like most of the time, people upload large batches, and the max you're going to see, even if you upload, say, 100,000 images, is like maybe a couple days at like max. But that's usually because maybe there's other, folks in the queue. But yeah, it's really fast. So your images kind of go through the Megadetector really quick. And that's sort of the classic Megadetector classifications of animal, which is sort of not really animal per se. It's just not on any of these other categories, which are vehicle, human, empty, and we have an additional one, staff setup, which is just humans at the start and the end of your image sets. We also do have Mega Classifier as well that you can use, but this is still really in testing, and it's sort of meant to be something that folks can sort of mess around with and investigate. But if you're sort of looking for concrete classifications, we haven't really gone through and tweaked that algorithm at all. Like it's something that you can select or deselect, but at this point, it's still in testing. So once you upload your data into WildTrax, you sort of see this list of image sets and a few of the functionalities of the system that you can sort of implement are either, data as image sets, like as you would classically think of camera data, but we can also incorporate now media list data, which is essentially a fancy term for just your tag CSV. And that's because, there's all this historical data that is sort of sitting there, but that doesn't necessarily have the images associated with it, or folks are limited by data privacy issues. So there's that ability as well. So you can manage your data sort of within this interface, but then you can also use these manage buttons to sort of sync all of your information for your tags, like using a CSV file, and as well as your location coordinates, so you don't have to enter them one by one. We can also sort of delete, and I say in quotation marks, delete individual images, because it is actually deleting the image itself, but in the system itself, it just shows you sort of a blank, like image not found, but you still retain the tagged information associated with that image, which is really good for FOIP, by the way, or Freedom of Information Protection. So adjustable tagging interface. So this is pretty flexible. I'm not going to go through all the details, but you can change the number of images per page, essentially increasing the size or decreasing the size of the images. You can easily sort of find images using these symbols on the left that sort of correspond with all these images on the right, with different symbol types depending on what's been tagged in them. There's a lot of filtering options. So essentially everything that you would have selected in your camera project settings, you can filter for, plus a few other things. I won't go into the details. Whoops, sorry. But those are all available now as image filters. And then, you can tag images as a single image, which is not very time efficient. So you can also do it in batch, just selecting multiple images at a time. Or you can also view your images in series. So based on whatever you set as the series gap or the time between series, you can also view sort of series that way. And it essentially makes, those series of images of the same deer sitting in front of the camera a lot faster to tag. As well, this is kind of a zoomed in view, but you can also sort of adjust the bounding box display thresholds. So you kind of see this up here, and as you go to the right, you see there's bounding boxes on all these, and as you go up, sort of increasing this threshold, they drop off. So just kind of showing you some of the flexibility as well. Okay, I went a little crazy with the animations here, so bear with me, but I just want to show you the different tagging field options, and a lot of these are fairly new. But of course, species is pretty standard fare, age and sex. We also recently incorporated behavior. health and disease status, and these are multi-select fields because, you know, there might be more than one behavior that you want to document, or health. Direction of travel, so that how this works, I'd have to tell you about later, but it's fairly intuitive. Coat color, coat attributes, time, so this is just a little pop-up here, but so this is antler tine information. Folks want to, you know, count whether the tines are symmetrical, if your estimate or your count, I guess, is exact or approximate, and so documenting that. Collars is also kind of used for on or off-leash dogs. Has an ear tag. This is a needs review, just sort of bringing yourself back to it later. Interacting with human feature. And then I'll just kind of go through these quickly because these are a variety of image level fields. The field of view is pretty important, actually. It's sort of documenting when images were, you know, your camera's been knocked out of view, and so it's not actually really an accurate assessment of what's in front of the camera. So we incorporate that through this field of view tag. But then kind of going through these are more just image level fields here. And then lastly, sort of once you're done tagging your images, there's also sort of a species verification, which is a double observer technique to essentially confirm that all of your tags are correct. And once you've done that, the question might be, okay, well, how do I access my data? Well, there's a few ways you can access your data. One is through the data downloads. There are a variety of reports that come out when you download information about your project. I think on the camera side, there might be like 8. And those are all the sorts of different levels of metadata, so location, sort of image set, you get the drift. You can also go through Data Discover to check out data that's available essentially on the map. And just so you're aware, if you do check out Data Discover, just because something's not on the map doesn't mean it's not in WildTracks. This is all just based on what users have specified for their privacy options. But there are some cool tools in here too to be able to see like what sort of detections you're getting per month or hour, or that sort of thing. Or if you have multiple different projects, you can kind of see across projects. And then the third way you can access your data is through the WildTracks R package. So this essentially authenticates into the system for you and allows you to pull a data right into R so that you can carry on with your analysis. And last but not least, I do want to talk about project publication and sharing. And so we kind of talked about as this is a privacy option, but we're really trying to, you know, communicate that this is kind of goes through this flow of it's private or map only, map plus report or public. And usually when you're processing your data, it's all in the active status. And so no one can really see it in the system at all until it's published. But this really will affect how data is visible across the system. And once you publish the data, it also stops it from being processed any further. And that's also to support the eventual and sort of in the near future implementation of DOI, so that you can sort of have this data cited in the literature more directly. And kind of bringing us to, so partners and sponsors. Actually, before I go there, one thing that I try and communicate about this is you know, WildTracks is not meant to be stealing your data. No one is using it at all unless you allow it. But really, the whole goal of the platform is sort of this idea of, okay, if we make this platform and, you know, promote data sharing collaboration, then hopefully, fingers crossed, people will. And if we do, eventually, you know, people will start working together more, and people will start, you know, having to actually go into the field and deploy less cameras because, oh, they know so-and-so is actually deployed already over here. And so it's sort of that idea of just promoting this collaborative environment. And that doesn't mean that we're expecting you to for by any means. And also kind of the question of, okay, well, what are you selling? Well, nothing. We're not actually selling anything. WildTracks is free. There may be sort of a cost recovery based data storage fee in the future, but right now and we're not anticipating that if that does happen, it's not going to be anytime soon. But yeah, the platform itself is free, and there's nothing. We're not using your data in the background. It is totally up to you as to what is available for others to see. And how that all, you know, comes together is, of course, there's a lot of partners and sponsors, and a lot of folks using this system, and so that's the way that we've been able to sort of make this great platform work. And if you ever need to get information about wild tracks, you can always email us at info@wildtracks.ca. Or if you're a current user and you're having issues with the system, you can email the support line, or you can, email the support line. So thanks so much for your time, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, actually, there is a question for you. So is there, and I mean, this is kind of a personal question. I'm glad somebody asked it. Is there like a sort of like an easy user interface for this, for amateurs? I mentioned before that I only use like Excel. So this is very big.
Yeah, no, and it might seem like a lot, and I kind of rushed through that. It's like the crash course on wild tracks, but it is really easy to use, to be honest. Like it maybe like I find that the first fiddling is a bit, you're like, okay, where's this screen, where's that screen? But then as soon as you get it, it's simple. And so that's why I think it's a really nice tool for a variety of user types. Like we have, novice to advanced users using wild tracks, and you don't need to be super technical minded to be able to use it. And that's true on the ARU side as well.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so you mentioned, you're able to use camera trap data. You're able to, I'm assuming you're able to put up like acoustic recorder data as well. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I didn't speak so much to that, but yeah, the acoustic side of things is definitely as big as the camera side. So that's all processed a little bit differently, of course, so that, the tagging interface is more like based on sound waves and things like that. But yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Cassie. Really appreciate it. And we're going to move on to Shah with Conservify and FieldKit. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good.
Can't wait to hear about this. It seems more as like environmental data, which we definitely need for when we're running our models. We need covariates like precipitation and temperature and stuff like that. So this is going to be excellent to hear about.
Great, thank you. Hey, everyone. So my name is Shah Selbe. I'm the founder of Conservify and FieldKit. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what those organizations do. But I will say that, I have an overall mission with the work that I do in the research that I work in, and that's around how to make all this stuff easier for biologists, mammalogists, ecologists, anybody out there who wants to understand more about our planet and how things are changing over time. And so everything that we do is sort of focused around that. Did the next slide go?
Yeah, perfectly, man.
Okay. So you'll see this is actually the space behind me. This is the Conservify lab. We are a nonprofit technology development lab. So we have the capabilities here to do things like manufacture circuit boards and 3D print things and all sorts of stuff. It's sort of geared towards prototyping, but the main thing is that we primarily and kind of exclusively work with field scientists and conservationists and folks like that. So I started Conservify 12 years ago. And over that time, we have been working on projects all over. We've been building things like, animal tags, different types of sensors, LoRa technologies, acoustic stuff. And really the way that Conservify was first structured was that anytime anyone had an idea or wanted to kind of try and figure out a way to make a more accessible tool, then we would come and work on it with them and try and create a new technology around that. So the way that we work is a little bit different. I don't know if I mentioned it, but we're a nonprofit. So Conservify and FieldKit, both nonprofits, with the mission of like, how do we create technologies that make this stuff a lot easier? And so what that means is that we develop the technologies in a way that's a little bit more like the kind of companies that you see like Apple and consumer electronics companies. But then we add a step in there where we perform scientific validation to make sure that these lower cost technologies can actually meet the needs of scientists out in the field. It's very different than the way that original field science equipment was built in the past. So we had a lot of requests to help us figure out what could be a better solution around environmental sensing. I don't know how much you know about, environmental sensors, but traditionally that industry, it's only a few small companies. They're all proprietary. And a lot of times their software is very difficult to use. It's hard to connect different types of sensors together. So it creates this sort of space that makes these tools quite a hurdle. They're expensive, hard to use. And in a lot of the places where we do our work, in parts of South America, in Africa, in Asia, the kind of commercially available environmental sensors are just outside of the reach of those budgets and stuff. So we created FieldKit to kind of reimagine what that ends up looking like. It's three things. It's hardware, it's an app, and it's a data visualization website. So the first part, the hardware, we have built this sort of suite of sensors and data loggers that can actually measure, changes to the environment, things like pH of the water, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, weather stations, air quality sensors, all sorts of different things. And we built it in a way for it to be really sort of modular. And so the idea is that you could have a data logger and you can plug in any one of these sorts of sensor modules that you'd like to have in there measuring data. So, with FieldKit, having a weather station that also has a pH sensor attached to it is just as simple as plug and play. You just put the board on and it works. Whereas a lot of the other companies out there, it wouldn't necessarily work like that. We had a lot of requests to build something that can work underwater. And so we've built this FieldKit underwater. This is a project that we first started with Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute in Panama. And they've been deploying a bunch of these. And now we're at the point where we're going to start making these available to other folks who might be interested. The device itself measures pH, conductivity, dissolved oxygen, temperature, depth. But then you can also add additional sensor modules. So it's modular in all the same ways that the other FieldKit stuff is. The second part of FieldKit that I talked about is an app. So, we've gotten so used to using apps to interface with things. And so the main way to interface with the hardware is using the app. We spent a lot of time trying to make this app super user-friendly, super intuitive. So if you want to change the name of your station, you want to download data, you want to change the measurement frequency, you want to look at the data, all that sort of stuff. It's just as simple as using any other app that you're used to using nowadays. And the last piece is what we call the portal. So that's our data visualization platform. It has map-based visualizations and chart-based. Part of the thing that we So when you're exploring the data in a station, let's just say a weather station, for instance, and you're looking at temperature and rainfall, as you change that portal page, each specific data view becomes its own unique URL. So that's something that can be shared on social media. It can be put as a reference to things. And then as you comment on stuff, that data view that you're looking on is tied to the comment. So if someone were to click on your comment, they get to see exactly what you're looking at when you had that that thought about the data that you're seeing there. The other thing I'll say is, we're a nonprofit. We're really interested in just making this technology easier to use. So we don't really care about whether or not you keep the data within FieldKit or not. We will host it if you want, but we have created this very forward-thinking data policy in that, if you want all your data to go out into another place, and we can create mechanisms and other technologies to plug your data into other systems. The team of engineers that work for FieldKit are happy to do so. And really, our goal is to how can we make it super easy to get data in so that you can look at it and understand it, and also to get data out into whatever platform or use case you'd like to use. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all this technology is completely open source. And so we allow, based off that open source nature and the way that we operate, Anybody can use any piece of FieldKit that they want. They don't have to use the whole system. So one example of this is the city of New York is doing their flood monitoring using our portal. So they have their own flood sensors, and they plugged it into our portal, and they have this white labeled version of it. So they're not going to fieldkit.org. You go to floodnet.nyc, and that whole thing is powered by FieldKit on the back end. And we've created this sort of white labeling package so that if somebody else wants to do the same thing, they can download the files, host it on their own website, or do whatever they want. At the same time, if you did want to use the fieldkit.org website and connect people to that, you're totally able to do that as well. So beyond just open sourcing the technology, we are very interested in making this stuff easier for anyone to do. So we open source everything. That includes our business plan. That includes all our user documentation. Basically, we're going through this big effort to understand, how do you, if you want to build something as a nonprofit, how you deal with taxes and customs and all these sorts of things as like a US-based nonprofit. Everything that we're learning, we're putting together onto this online resource that anybody can take and replicate if they wanted to in the future. And that also includes things like tutorials and other sort of stuff that we've been really focused on around this information. I think one of the main goals of FieldKit is like, how do we make this stuff easy to use for everybody? So like, that there's not this big barrier to working on it when it comes to language or technical expertise or all these other sort of other things. And so we just really want to lower the barrier to entry for all that. One of the things that we've been doing a lot of recently is what we call field schools, and this is it's kind of a cool initiative. We go into an area that we've been working, and so we'll have partner organizations that we've been working with, and then regionally we'll pull in other NGOs. And we'll do a big training that talks about like why environmental monitoring's important, what kind of things do you want to measure, why do you want to measure it, what are the questions that you have, how do we find answers for it, and then we go through like sort of a workshop on building things and deploying them out in the field. So this picture is one that we're doing in the Peruvian Amazon. We've since done it again in the Colombian Amazon, and we've done it in upstate New York. In the Catskills and Bashakil region with a bunch of different nonprofits and other organizations, state agencies and all that come together to try and understand how they can better, monitor and understand the changes that are happening to their local area. And so, as a nonprofit, our goal really is like, let's just get rid of some of this ambiguity and difficulty in trying to understand and measure our world, and then how do we just make sure it's fully open source. We're a big believer in open source, and if you're not familiar with what open source means, it's basically the concept of if you were to create a technology, instead of taking that technology and trying to get intellectual property or patent it, and then make some money off of it. Like if you could take, the hardware designs and the code and all this other stuff that you create, and then put that stuff online for anyone to be able to replicate and do themselves, then that ends up becoming a pretty powerful mechanism to, increase accessibility and allow other people to use these sorts of things. And it's a great thing. And so, we have an interesting business model as a nonprofit in that we do manufacture hardware, and we will allow people to, we'll sell our hardware if people want to buy them, but all the designs and everything's online. So if you have the capabilities to manufacture them, you can manufacture them yourself, and we would be happy to support that. That one of the benefits of doing that is that if people want to measure something that we don't already have a sensor for, like the ability to create your own sensor module that measures X, Y, and Z or interfaces with this other tool that you have, it's there and it's available, and we actually have like a mechanism to do that. So so we have projects all over. We're working with a bunch of different organizations. I just wanted to talk briefly about a couple of them. We have a big regional project in the Amazon that we've been working with the Wildlife Conservation Society, OMACHA, a bunch of local NGOs and communities around monitoring, environmental data, water quality, weather, and a bunch of other stuff that's happening in the region around the intersection of Peru, Colombia, and Brazil. This is something that we've been, as an organization, supporting in a big way, and we continue to kind of into the future. We've also been working a lot in the Congo Basin. This is a photo from Cameroon where we have a project with UCLA to deploy sensors and field kits in the Jaw Faunal Reserve. The other thing that we've done as part of that project is we've created a LoRa radio network to allow other people to bring back their data from their own devices for free through the rainforest. And so we've developed these kind of radio nodes that we've put throughout all the high points in that rainforest, and that is a resource for anyone to be able to use. And we've been working with Parks Canada on a project in Banff. This is a glacier, a seismic glacier monitoring station that we've created that we're going back to do a bunch of extra work on. But the idea is that, if people want to measure something, whatever it ends up being from an environmental monitoring standpoint, and we're happy to help. And any way that we can take that data and interface it with the tools and the systems and the mechanisms that you use, that's something that we would love to do. So please reach out if you're interested. I'm always happy to talk to people about ideas and projects. No idea is too crazy for me. We love working on new and exciting stuff. So thank you.
I have never heard of that whole modular thing of just putting in different modules, but that sounds excellent. Like, it's so genius. You do have a question. The question is, any big challenges with making things open source? It's such a cool idea, but it's a very unique approach. And
yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. Like there are always challenges with making it open source. I would say there's a right way to make things open source. Like, just putting all your stuff online doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to build a community of people working on it and building it and improving it and making it better. So there's all these things that you have to do around that to sort of support it. There's always the risk that someone's going to take your designs and try and build it cheaper than you can. The fact that we're a nonprofit and that when we do sell hardware, we're not selling them for the profit margins that a commercial company could do, because we're mostly grant funded and we have all these other mechanisms that we keep the team around for. So that allows us to kind of wedge against that. But if you do make something open source, there is always the risk that someone can come and build on it. But most people within that community do it in sort of a good way, where they feed back to your project, make your project stronger and all that sort of stuff.
I think we have time for one more question, but it's going to have to quickly answer. Favorite location to work in and use these technologies personally as an explorer? So which is your favorite location you're working on?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Amazon. I think it's pretty amazing, and it feels like there's the folks that I work with out there are incredible and inspiring, and the communities are incredible, and there's this understanding of the importance of that ecosystem that you sort of don't get in the US and some of the other places. And so as a conservationist, it's a very inspiring place to work, I find.
Awesome. Actually, go ahead and, since you're on the screen already, go ahead, shout out your, I guess, your contact information. Shah, Selbe, right? FieldKit.
Yeah.
Conservify. Yep.
Yeah, FieldKit.org. And my name's Shah Selbe. I'm Googleable. You can find me on social media and all that stuff. So thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you for joining us. So does everybody else want to shout out their stuff? Freaklabs first, and then we'll go to Tech for Conservation. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. You can reach me at Jacinta at freaklabs.org. And
I'm at Akiba at freaklabs.org. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or just feel like chatting, because I'm mainly in front of my computer if I'm not in the field.
Yeah. And also there's boomboxproject.org and freaklabs.org that you can check out as well.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Maureen, Reilly with, yes, hello.
Hey,
Hi.
yeah. So you can reach us at Maureen at techforconservation.org. Our website is t4c.org. And if you want to find out about any of those wild books, just contact us there and we'll send you in the right direction.
Awesome. Can we get Kyle from Wildlife Acoustics? Yes.
Hello. All right. You can find all sorts of general information, customer stories, projects, all things that we're working on, webinars at wildlifeacoustics.com. And if you want to get in touch with me personally, that's just Kyle at wildlifeacoustics.com. You'll hit my direct line.
Awesome. Thank you. And Cassie, we'll have you round it out. Or go ahead.
All right. Yeah, that's you can reach us at info@wildtracks.ca, and that's wildtracks with an X. So yes, there you go. It's on the screen. Yeah, thanks so much for having us again.
All right. Thank you guys. You guys have been great. And I hope whoever has been watching this, you guys enjoyed learning about all this interesting technology and things to do in the field. It's been really fun. Thank you guys.
Thanks for